Hello, my friend, and welcome today. I am very happy to introduce you all to Sara Larson. She is an evidence-based menopause coach who I have the pleasure of knowing in real life in Minnesota. I was not able to go to the Menopause Society meeting, unfortunately, very recently, but Sara was there. So we're going to talk about updates and interesting news from that conference today. So, welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Hi.
So, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into this work of menopause coaching?
Absolutely. I decided to get my life coaching certification about 5 years ago because my whole career, every time that I have tried to do something new, I always end up circling around and somehow working with women. I started out as a youth director and then I ended up working with my kids' moms. And then I decided that I wanted to own a stand-up paddleboard company. So I did that. And then I just ended up teaching women how to stand up paddleboard. And then I had a long career leading women's adventure travel and retreats. And so I feel like my whole life and career has really been about walking alongside women and being a part of women's lived experiences, which has become my passion. So I wanted to finally get my life coaching certification because I love the work, I love the conversations. And while I was doing that, I thought
Mhm.
I was going to really focus on women who are navigating that sort of sandwich generation where they're like, we still have kids at home, but they're navigating aging parents. And the difficulty with that, my dad died of Alzheimer's about 13 years ago, and we walked such a long road with his illness and watching my mom take care of him. And so I was passionate about that. And then while pursuing that and being really excited about it, I just started having all kinds of weird health stuff start happening. I've been healthy my whole life, active my whole life, really haven't had many health issues at all. And in my mid 40s, all of a sudden stuff just started to go wonky. And I mean, like weird wonky. Like I would work out and I couldn't recover. I was having bizarre injuries. I was sore all the time, like muscle and joint aches and pains. I couldn't get out of bed. And I finally started doing some digging. I went to 12 doctors in over 2 years and asked 100 questions. I joined an Alzheimer's research study because I was convinced I had early onset. And then I was online and somebody posted a picture of like all of the different symptoms of perimenopause.
Yeah.
And there were like 30 listed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have like 92 of these symptoms. And then this I think is what's happening to me. And it started this process where I started digging. I ended up learning about the National Menopause Society,
Hmm.
went on there, found a care provider. I got some help. And that just sent me down this whole path of being like, this is too hard. It should not be this hard for women to find evidence-based, accurate information that can help them feel better and also just not feel like they're going completely and totally crazy. I mean, I thought I was losing my mind. It was
Yeah.
so here
Yeah.
I am years later, a menopause coach.
Right. That's great, but you've been digging a lot more into science as well with this, right? I mean, that's been an important part of your journey.
Yes, it's been a huge part of my journey. And honestly, because I don't know if I was born skeptical, but I'm super skeptical of anything I hear on the online space. And as you know how the algorithm works, right? Like you say you want a red car, and then all of a sudden all you see are ads for red cars. Well,
Yes.
I started talking, about perimenopause and menopause, and I just started getting flooded with information.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff I saw, I just was like, well, that's interesting. And I'll admit, like I bit on a bunch of it. I've spent
Sure.
hundreds and hundreds of dollars on silly supplements that didn't do anything and
Mhm.
even chasing some treatment options that ended up just not being useful in any way, shape, or form. And again, that just sort of reinforced for me, like, where do we go to get good information that we know has been studied? It's peer reviewed. There's research backing it. We know practitioners are implementing this. We know it's working. There's evidence that it's working. Like, how can I help bridge that gap between what physicians and care providers really need women to know and understand. And then also just like what women can hear, need to hear, and want to know about so that they can make choices that they feel empowered to make and that feel right for them.
Yeah, I love how you take people on this journey because it's adventure travel.
It
which
is.
is
It's
your
so
expertise all along.
right. And for some women, it's like a crazy, terrifying roller coaster. For some women, it's a little bit of a blip on the radar that they just need a little help with. Like for each woman, it's so different and
Yeah.
unique. And I think too, the piece that gets missed when we get a lot of sound bites or try to get all of our information online or even from a 17-minute doctor appointment, like
Mhm.
there's only so much time. And this is a multi-year, multifaceted, multi-system process that takes a long time. So having someone like me who can walk that long path, I think can make the difference for some women.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's such a gift. The one thing that people do talk about online a lot is how little doctors have been educated about this whole transition, right? And I also, got to the point where my periods dropped off, which that happened quickly. There wasn't a big change. And I was like, wait, oh, wait, I might be going into menopause here. But there was never a lot of conversation around perimenopause, just the menopause definition. You don't have your period for a year and you're done, much less how to help anyone in the 10 years before that or the 10 years
Right.
after it. So,
Or know that your itchy ears could be a piece of the equation and your achy
yeah.
wrists and ankles could be a piece of the equation too. Like it just all gets missed.
Right, right. So interesting. I want to hear about the Menopause Society meeting. So,
It's so good.
I remember when I went last year, they served us lunch because there was so much to go over. They're like, just buckle up and here we go. And
The way I described it, we met at that in person for the first
yes.
time. And I remember us chatting about it a little bit when we were there. But again, it's like I tell people it's literally like walking in the door, sticking your face to a fire hydrant. They turn it on high and you're just like, okay, I'll just like take as much as I can in. This year I did a little bit better job. I took a couple breaks because it's
Nice.
all recorded. So I just was able to go back and watch the ones that I left. I had to go outside. It was in Florida, so it was sunny and beautiful outside.
Oh, nice.
And that I think helped me retain more too. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I go for a little walk or just go breathe some fresh air for a bit. That helped because
nice.
it's so intense and it's so research dense. And from the minute it starts till the minute it ends.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to tell us about a few things. So why don't you start with, we pulled up a few ideas on what would be helpful to talk about. So why don't you go ahead and jump in with the first one?
Well, I think a great place to start is there was an opening talk by Dr. Jen Gunter about misinformation and even just our opening conversation, right? Talking about what we see online and how much noise there is online about menopause right now. It's become such a prevalent topic. And I know that's also like all my algorithm feeds me, but like it is a part of the ether. Oprah's doing specials about it. We've got all these famous people talking about it, Halle Berry. And in the midst of that big opening, wide opening space that is the menopause conversation, there is a lot of not even always necessarily bad information, but not accurate information. And
Right.
Dr. Gunter's purpose in her opening talk was really to talk about like, do we understand some really basic terms? Like, do we understand that the term bioidentical is a functionally made up word, right? That isn't particularly useful in the context of what menopause hormone therapy looks like now. And are people making claims that certain treatments do more than the evidence shows that they do? Testosterone being a big example of that. And even menopause hormone therapy. Like, are we saying menopause hormone therapy can prevent Alzheimer's disease, right? We don't have evidence to support that, but in some cases, you have doctors or just influencers online saying those kinds of things. So it was just a really great kind of leveling of the playing field from the beginning of the conference to talk about what is happening in the broader space and context of the conversation and how important it is to be able to give patients, clients, everyone accurate information so that they understand like there is hope, there is help, but there's not some like magical quick fix that's going to make all of your menopause symptoms just vanish into the ether. So I really appreciated that conversation. I thought it was such a great way to start the conference.
Yeah, that is great. Love that too.
Yeah, it was so good.
And just to let people know that there is the website for the Menopause Society, menopause.org, where you can find someone, a doctor or another provider to take care of you, certified practitioners there. But they also have just a lot of teaching information there as well. And it's very strict on evidence-based practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they really toe the line there with that across the board. And they have some really amazing resources too, just that make their guidelines a little bit easier to understand. It's such a great tool. It ended up being one of the first places I discovered when I was starting down this journey. And I go back to it over and over again. Obviously, I go to the conference. So yeah, I love it. It's a great website.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what you think about this as well. But even some of these people that were really thankful that they're talking about it and making, famous people, actors and big name doctors, but a lot of them are also selling products,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is not that those things aren't good products, but we also have to just feel a little bit like, well,
I know. I think that's the hard part. I'm prone to this stuff as much as anyone.
yeah,
And truth be told, you see somebody online and you're like, oh, they seem to have really dialed this in. This must work. And we do have a general belief that, well, if they're saying it and they have millions of followers and no one's saying this isn't true, it must be true. And I don't think any of these people are setting out to hurt anyone.
right.
Really don't. And there is a little bit of that gray area. There's some questionable area. For me personally, particularly when doctors are selling supplements, and I don't know, there's so much money to be made right now in the
There
menopause
is.
space. I forget, there was a statistic, and I'm going to get the exact number wrong because it was so astronomical. I almost didn't believe it was true. They did a 1 month breakdown on menopause specific supplements that were being sold on Amazon. And it was like in 1 month, it was like just millions and millions and millions of dollars
Wow.
that are
Okay.
being
Yeah.
spent. And this is just Amazon and people trying, searching so hard and trying so hard to find something that might work.
Yeah.
And it's become quite evident that everyone's capitalizing on it. Heather, I was in Target the other day and saw a menopause shampoo. I'm like,
Wow.
you just need it to smell good and suds up. Like it doesn't gonna, there's no magical menopause shampoo that's gonna do it.
Oh, isn't that funny?
Maybe they
And
put
yet, on the flip
formaldehyde.
side, I take 4 supplements, which if I don't take them, my well-being is not as good. Like I actually
Right.
feel better because I take these 4 supplements.
Right.
Um,
Exactly. It's tricky. And wading through it, I think, is the part that's tricky because there is some really good evidence that there are certain supplements that really do help people.
right,
I mean,
right.
we know that. And what we're missing is robust research to prove it on like a mass scale.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that there isn't evidence showing that there are certain supplements that are, in fact, very effective for certain
right.
conditions, and particularly around menopause, some of the things that we face. So I agree with you. I'm counting, I take 3 and I take them religiously because I really do feel like they've moved the needle for me. And
Yeah,
I did them slow. I started one at a time. I gave it 6 weeks to let the placebo effect wear off. And like, I noticed a difference. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm not saying all of it's bad. It's just, it's
right.
messy. It's kind of like a messy, loud space. And wading through that can be really confusing, I think,
Yeah.
for clients.
And once again, people who listen to the podcast know I always recommend if you have access to an integrative medicine doctor in the town where you live, there probably is one that takes insurance. There will be some that are cash pay, but they are supplement experts. And so I do highly recommend going to a clinic that has that because they can go through all these things, go through your symptoms and say, oh, this is going to help you. This is not. But I mean, there are stores where you could go in before that are filled with supplements. They're a supplement store even before all this menopause stuff took off. So
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
always been an unregulated, difficult scene anyway, right?
Yeah, it has been. And I think the piece too that, one of the things we know now is that a big piece of the complication in the supplement sphere is that there are so many private label brands. And so really knowing and understanding like where things are being manufactured, are those particular supplements being third party tested? Because
Right.
when they're not, it's kind of the Wild West, right? The truth is
Hmm.
there's no regulation about what can be in a lot of these supplements. And so again, like finding somebody who really understands like what brands even are safe, which brands
Yeah.
do third-party testing, and then someone like an integrative specialist who can really understand too, are you on other medications? Are there contraindications for some of these supplements with those medications? Because there can be really big problems with liver and kidney interaction. And so
Right.
someone who knows that is so essential.
Yeah. For example, if people are recommended magnesium, it interacts with many medications.
Right.
Well, tell us a little bit about, you guys talked a little bit about misinformation on testosterone at the meeting, right?
Oh, it's so funny. You say testosterone and I like start sweating. It's such a contentious subject.
Yeah.
But it was brought up. There were numerous presentations on testosterone, and it was brought up a couple of times. And it has become, there was just a big New York Times article, Susan Davis, I forget who wrote it. It was October 22nd, New York Times article about the prevalence and like this kind of boom that is happening with women who aren't just taking testosterone, they're taking high doses of testosterone and literally like calling it the liquor of life. Like it's exploding. And along with that, there's very little conversation or not enough conversation about that there are some really big risks associated with that, like permanent vocal cord changes, permanent clitoral changes. Like there's some stuff that can go seriously wrong if it's misused, but that there's also some really beautiful evidence and more evidence every day that there is a place for it and that women really are suffering from a lack of data, right? We
Yeah.
clear the way for testosterone for men really quickly and are really comfortable with the risks associated with testosterone use in men. But the minute those same risks show up for women, it's like, nope, it's not available. We shouldn't use it. And I think that there's just such a lack of equity in the way that that science has been funded.
For sure.
We're suffering the consequences of that because, again, we just don't have data. We know there are certain things that it's effective in treating, like libido, but there are claims being made that it'll, prevent Alzheimer's and dementia or that it'll help with osteoporosis. And there just really isn't the evidence to show yet that that's true. There's
Right.
also not evidence to say it's not true, but to make the claims that it's there is, I think it's jumping the gun a little bit.
Agree. Agree. And some of those changes in voice and clitoris are permanent.
Yeah.
It's something to be very careful of.
Yeah.
I was listening to someone talk about how, I like to warn against pellets in particular because you may end up with a very high level and they can't be removed. And people don't know, how much to give. And the thing is, I listened to someone say, well, as long as you have someone who really knows how to do it. And I think, yeah, no pellets.
Yeah. Well, and there's no, every person absorbs them at a different rate and differently. And so, yeah, with the New York Times article, would talk specifically about a woman who went on them and just was like, she had energy, her libido had come back with a vengeance, but then suddenly her hair was falling out in chunks and she had like huge bald spots. And that's,
Male pattern baldness.
right?
Yeah.
And acne, really terrible acne. So I think that understanding that, like that for me is the part that's hard. Because again, I'm not a doctor. I'm never going to say you should go on testosterone. I'm never say you shouldn't go on testosterone. Like I don't play in that space. But what makes it so hard is when getting that information and believing who you're hearing it from, again, is cloudy. And I think for me, what I keep hearing from my clients is like, it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating to really not know where to go to get information and who to get it from.
Right. And so I think getting someone who's menopause certified is really helpful. I mean, I personally feel like I wish I knew if testosterone would help me.
I know.
I really do wish I would take it if I knew that it did, but I, don't need to take it if I don't know it's going to do anything for me, If I don't need it for the libido and the other stuff, I'm like, well, I have osteoporosis in my family. I wish we knew if it helped bones.
Yeah,
but we don't, so I'm not going to just take it.
And I mean, there's some exciting stuff in the works, and it is being studied. It is being researched. It's a waiting game, and it's hard when you're in our space, right? Where we're like, no, we could benefit from this if we knew, but we don't know. So it's like,
yeah, can't wait to find out.
I know it. Seriously. So
So
true.
you had some interesting kind of specific stuff about sleep too, which I'd
There was
love to hear about.
such a good, well, sleep again, it came up over and over and over. But one of the things that I found really interesting is they were talking about the impact of lack of sleep on
Mm,
weight, which is your expertise.
yeah.
The conversation was so fascinating because they were like, we know now and we have seen that women who sleep less than 7 to 8 hours a night on average consume more calories, on average make poorer health choices, whether that's to exercise or not exercise.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little bit of a no shit Sherlock. Like we've known this for years. Like
Yeah.
sleep is so, so, so important. But there is a direct relationship between our long-term health and even our short-term decision making and how much we're sleeping. I mean, I don't know if you have had much sleep disruption with your experience, but mine's been horrible. And those days where you get 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night and then you have to get up and function and be nice to people, like it's,
Yeah. Your family
it's
expects it.
no, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It really does impact our long-term health. And now too, we're seeing that chronic lack of sleep impacts our heart health. We know it impacts our brain health. Like there's just so much tied to how much rest we're getting and how much our bodies are being allowed to really heal while we sleep. And if we cut that out or skimp on it, yeah, no
Yeah.
good.
And they talked about a calorie count for lack of
Mhm.
sleep, right? Can you share
Yeah.
that, please?
Yeah. Women who sleep less than 7 to 8 hours tend to make different food choices, meaning on average, they consume 250 calories extra per day than women who sleep 7 to 8 hours on average. And so you think about that too, even just like every day, if you're constantly in a sleep deprived state, and that becomes the normative pattern, like the long term, I mean, I'm terrible at math, but like the long term impact of that over a year, that's a lot of extra calories that you probably wouldn't have chosen if you'd have been able to just get a decent night's sleep.
Right. And that does affect, we do know that, and we've talked about this on other episodes where we dove deep into sleep about how that affects your hunger and fullness hormones and that kind of thing. But it's interesting to have an actual calorie amount
Right?
um, with that. So
And it
it's
might have
very
been higher.
interesting.
Like I'm being conservative. It might have
Okay.
been a little bit higher than that. But yeah, still, it's
Yeah.
significant.
It's a significant number. Yeah.
Really is. Well, and I think too, I really appreciated that like there was a lot of conversation too, right? Like there are
Mhm.
pharmaceutical options for sleep, but what we also know is that what really moves the needle for sleep is consistency, right? Like creating those healthy patterns, whether, find your own circadian rhythm, but going to sleep at the same time, getting up at the same time, even like eating at the same time and finding
Yeah.
that kind of consistent pattern can result in better sleep. So, really paying attention to and recognizing that the sleep hygiene makes a difference. It does impact how well we sleep and how long we sleep. And I think that it's easy to kind of poo poo that as like, well, no, it's fine. I'll just have that drink tonight at 9 o'clock, or I'll just, you know,
Yeah.
sleep until 10 o'clock this day. Like, again, none of that stuff's terrible in and of itself, but we know if sleep is a problem, consistency with our behaviors makes a big difference.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like I can do fine eating one late meal, but my husband thinks I'm a princess when I'm like, I can't eat that late, more than 2 days, 2 days in a row. It's going to mess up my sleep. And he kind of looks at me like I'm an insane person. But you start to dial in what's really important for you, right? And sometimes, we hit this age, perimenopause and menopause, and we're not dialed into what's going on with our body. So it's really a great time to start pay attention. You
Yeah.
know, what does move the needle? What does make a difference? And stop doing the things that mess it up, right?
Yes. Because I personally know very few women who haven't been impacted by sleep and the lack of sleep and that feeling of being constantly
Yeah.
tired. Like at some point, it isn't worth it. I know that's how I go to my kids tuck me in,
Yeah.
right? Like I had to flip the script because
Yeah.
I have a house full of night owls and they all get the right amount of
Mhm.
sleep, but they start later and I have to go to bed earlier or I don't sleep.
Yeah.
So Yeah, sometimes it means a little bit of a sacrifice, but it is rare that I am willing to compromise that and stay up late. It's just not worth
There was another big topic you wanted to share about today.
it. So this one is like, I feel I feel passionate about all of it, but this one I thought was, there was a point at which like I had to refrain from standing up and cheering. And we talked a lot about perimenopause. So I'm sure your people know well, right? Perimenopause is leading up to that moment of menopause, and then there's postmenopause. But the way that we have talked about perimenopause
Mhm.
has kind of missed the boat. And because
Yeah.
typically, right, if you're a woman who's noticing that things are different, you go to the doctor and you say, could this be menopause? And very frequently, the established norm, if the doctor is even informed about menopause at all, will say, well, are you experiencing any skipped cycles, right? Are you getting a regular period?
Yeah.
And a lot of women will be like, yeah, I still get a regular period. And the response then, standard issue response is, well, then you're not in menopause. You're too young. It's not happening yet. But what there's all this amazing, beautiful research showing is that we know this is happening way earlier. Like the average that we talk about has been like late 40s is when we start to see perimenopausal symptoms. But we know now this is starting to happen in many, if not most women in their mid to late 30s. And the very simple thing that they said is like the number one thing women say when they go into the doctor's office is, I don't feel like myself, right? It's not
Yeah.
my period's changing or I've skipped a month or right, or even I'm having hot flashes. They
Right.
come in and they say, I don't feel like myself. And they typically say stuff like, I'm more easily frustrated. I'm annoyed by my spouse. Everybody's driving me crazy. My temper is short. I have no patience. Like there's all of these like mood things that start showing up for women way earlier. And we know now that like there's such a huge impact in those estrogen fluctuations in mood.
Hmm.
So we know this is happening. And then the changes in our cycles aren't, we're skipping a month. It's maybe your flow's lasting a little bit longer, or maybe it's getting a little bit shorter, or maybe it's a little heavier, or maybe it's a little bit lighter. But you're noticing that there's just like some of these subtle changes to your monthly cycle.
Hmm.
And that those are very clear indicators that the ovaries are shutting down and this transition is starting. And knowing that's happening in their 30s, like if we can start educating and preparing women to understand that these are the changes you can start to look for, these are things you might
Yeah.
start noticing happening, like women's ability to prepare and get a team of people who can walk alongside them through this, I just think the benefits could be exponential. It just excites me to no end to be able to say that there were 3,000 doctors in a room who heard this message. I just don't feel like myself. Like,
Yeah.
huge. That's huge.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Right?
Yeah. And I can't even remember the first things, but I do remember that,
Yeah.
I don't even remember some of the things, what the order were of some things, but I do remember that for sure.
The one thing that came up too, there were like the top three, but the top three were feeling anxious. So a heightened sense of anxiety was the big one,
Hmm.
forgetfulness, and then this like kind of agitation and mood stuff. And I think that for me, I know anxiety visited really early on in
Yeah.
the equation. And I hadn't really ever had anxiety before, so it was a new onset. But we know that if you have a history of anxiety during perimenopause, that can get markedly worse. Like you can see more extremes in that for both anxiety and depression. And I
Yeah.
think that's just such helpful information for women to know. Like, no, you're not going crazy. No, you haven't just turned into a horrible, mean person. Like, there are biological changes that are occurring in your body that make this make sense. Doesn't necessarily make it pleasant, but it makes
Right.
it make sense. And that's important.
Yeah. To normalize it. No,
Yeah,
this is just part of the process. And that there are things to do too, which is,
absolutely.
helpful because if you know, if people who are supporting you know, then there are things to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and the
To help make things
toolkit
better.
is vast, right? It's not just
Yeah.
menopause hormone therapy. That's one of the tools in the toolkit, but there are all kinds of tools in the toolkit. And I think too, there's a propensity, again, sort of sliding back to the misinformation, right? this propensity to be like, well, I went and talked to my doctor and they just put me on an antidepressant, or they just put me on birth control, or they just put me on whatever. There are many cases where that is established best practice, particularly when you're having extreme mood issues where like you see
Yeah.
suicidal ideation and really horrible depressive symptoms before women get their
Mhm.
period. It's like tending to those is really, really, really important. So
Right.
are tools in the toolkit that I think get dismissed sometimes in casual vernacular is like doctors not paying attention, but it might actually be a best practice.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that because I almost feel like doctors should stop and look you in the eye and go, I am paying attention. I do know what's going on and this is going to help. You know what I mean? So that people aren't like, well, they just threw me this pill.
Every time I'm at the conference, one of my favorite things to do is there's so many doctors, right? Like I would say that's probably 80% physicians and
Yeah.
researchers and the rest of us. And I try to ask as many doctors over and over and over, what is the thing that makes it most challenging for you to be able to feel like you can make progress with your patients quickly? And almost across the board, what they say is, I don't have time. I have a 17-minute window, or I have a 25-minute window. If you're really lucky and have a private practice, maybe you have an hour, but you get these really small windows of time to be with a
Right.
woman for one day and getting her all of the information she needs and getting all the information you need out of her
Mm-hmm.
is time consuming process. And there's this point where like they simply don't have time to educate or follow up the way that they all would really love to, which has been one of the things that I've so enjoyed. I've kind of slid in that space, helping women prep for
Yeah.
doctor's appointments, helping follow up after doctor's appointments to just help women understand like these are very reasonable suggestions. You don't have to do anything you aren't comfortable with, but like here might be an explanation for why that was chosen. Just being able to kind of like buffer that front and back end of those appointments. Um,
Yeah.
that for me has become kind of a surprising tool that I offer that again wasn't necessarily on the docket when I started.
Yeah. I love that. When I started menopause hormone therapy myself, I did not know much about it at the time. And I remember even just going through the quick and dirty. This is how you use this patch. You got to take this other thing. And then she said, okay, we'll talk in 4 weeks. And I was like, wait, 4 weeks?
No.
you know? And she was like, and she stopped and she said, oh, you need to know that this gets changed very slowly. And we will work on this and it will seem very slow. And I was like, that seems very slow. 4 weeks
Oh
to see if
no.
I'm okay or not on this dose, and then I might need something else. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for everything you shared about the meeting. It sounds like it was fun and full of energy as well. And oh, do give us, you and I were talking before we started recording that um, we need more research, and some funding has been cut from the government,
Mhm.
um, but some things are ongoing and still continuing. And there were some other good news that you got at the meeting.
Yeah. Well, there was a few NIH studies that are still going strong.
Great.
Funding's been maintained and it hasn't been under immediate threat, so that's great. Um, Even more exciting is the Menopause Society itself has gotten two huge donations, two separate donations of $5 million each. One just towards research and better understanding and being able to fund some research, and then one specifically around like helping like let's talk about technology in this space and how we can make all of this information easier for people to get access to so that they can get clear evidence-based information more easily without having to look so hard. So the fact that there's like a big amount of money going towards that, I think is just so exciting. And that is good news. I think that's one of my favorite things about being at the conference is you come away and are just like, there is so much happening. There is
Yeah,
so
that's
much being
exciting.
studied and researched, and we're just going to benefit from them.
Yeah. And I love that they're going to do something about tech and
Me
getting
too.
information out because, I know a lot of people are like, well, I better go on Instagram and try to figure out what I should do for my osteoporosis. And there is some good information there, but not all of it is. And it would be good to have a more trusted source.
Yeah, exactly. And more robust. I think that's the thing that the Menopause Society
Mhm.
keeps saying that like we have all this information. How do we make it accessible to the general public in a way that's like they can understand it and that's palatable and they can use in order to make good decisions? So I think it's huge.
So cool. Well, thank you again. And how can people find you, Sarah, if they are looking for a guide to walk them through this
Absolutely.
perimenopause and menopause journey?
The best way is just to go to my website, which is just saralarsoncoaching.com. There's an easy way to book a free 15-minute call with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm actually building out, I have a couple of online classes that are going to get up on the website here in the next couple of weeks. But if you have any questions, the nice thing too is the call's not a sales call. It really is designed for me to listen to your story, hear what's happening, and see if I can figure out what the next best direction is. Because sometimes it's me, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's another coach. I'm
Yeah.
so passionate about making sure people have access to information and resources that they need. Because not everyone needs a full-time coach, but I think everyone needs a little help once in a while to just feel like they're not alone in this.
Terrific. And we'll make sure that your links are in the show notes so people can find you easily. And thanks so much for sharing about the meeting. It's always super fun to
Absolutely.
talk about this stuff with you.
I hope you get to go next year. It's in San Diego.
Oh, I should. Thank you.
Indeed.